what'll happen is when that person makes the shift,
Hmm.
um, the cash outlay, a lot of times they kind of source the down payment from friends and family. They kind of, it becomes a family investment, so to
Hmm.
speak. Is that still happening now? Is that becoming more of a challenge with the prices being with there being a premium on
Hmm.
the asset now? Are people are people able to come up with that initial down payment?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely extremely prevalent. As part of our underwriting, or most of the time we analyze bank statements and we'll
Mm,
see a certain level of cash in the bank, and all of a sudden there's a big uptick to illustrate their down payment.
yeah.
Most of the time they say it's from an investment account, but we know it's generally from, gathering from like friends and family. It is tough. I mean, we're seeing, 2015s, 2016s go for 80, 90,000 right now.
Welcome to Stream, a trucktractortrailer.com production. My name is Zach Miller. I'm your host, and I'm honored to be joined once again by Andrew Johnston, who is the co-founder of TrueCore Capital LLC. Andrew, welcome back to Stream. Thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure.
Uh, it is. It is. It's so here we are. Andrew and I are recording here. It's, the last couple of weeks of 2021, and everyone's kind of starting to look forward to that 2022, that new year. And as we know, Andrew and I have discussed it. It's been a topic on Stream, many episodes, is the freight demand and how the freight market is so hot. We expect it to be hot well past 2022. We're looking at, 2023. And so that means that it is a good time, for people if they're interested in transitioning from a company driver into owner operator, or if they're looking to change careers and become an owner operator, it's a good opportunity for that. But let's be honest, people really don't necessarily know how to get started on there. So Andrew, I'd like to talk about the first time buyer and
Mhm.
their journey today.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, speaking on freight demand, I mean, I'm from California, so driving up and down the freeway all the time, you see trucks everywhere, and almost every single one you see is asking for drivers, whether that's the company driver or the owner operator. Um, and as Zach was saying, transitioning from a company driver to an owner operator is a big step, but it's a logical step for many people that are comfortable, have a few years of CDL under their belts.
So what? Okay, so let's play it out, right? Let's say I've been driving for a mid to large size fleet for a couple of years. I already
Mhm.
have my CDL.
Okay.
And I've been driving for maybe, let's call it, just under 5 years. And now I'm thinking, now's the time. I want to go out on my own. I want to take that chance. So what do I have to do? So where do I go? Do I buy the truck first? Do I buy the truck? What should my initial thoughts be?
The first thought should be planning. A lot of people, they see dollar signs, right? As a company driver, you're making X. As an owner operator, you're making 2.5 to 3X, which is great. It's fantastic, but with that comes all of the scheduling, all the overhead, all the expenses that typically your carrier pays for. So you need to think about, you need to lease or buy a truck. You need to book your own loads. Maybe you need to get hooked up with a freight brokerage. Maybe you're just converting and driving for your current fleet. There's just a lot of different scenarios that can come up. But number one is just really plan it out. And I think that's where a lot of people get hung up on, is that planning stage and the scariness of it.
And because that's it, right? You sit down, you pull out a piece of paper, and all of a sudden, those numbers start to look maybe a little bit differently on paper than you would have anticipated in your head.
Right. Right.
So let's pretend, for argument's sake, we're in a more normal market.
Okay.
What do you recommend? Do you recommend they buy a new vehicle, or do you recommend, if they're going to buy, or do you
Hmm.
recommend that they buy something used?
If they're going to be a first time buyer, I always or typically always recommend that they buy something used. I mean, nothing, you have to think as an owner operator that this truck is going to be your single source of income. And on the lending side, that's also why you are potentially more risky because if that truck goes down, your ability to repay is significantly affected. So like buying brand new is great if you have the cash and the credit to do it, but most people, most normal people do not.
Right.
So getting a used truck, 200, 300, 400,000 miles within 5 model years, that's typically how I guide people on this journey.
I like, so 5 model years, 400,000 miles. Um, what are we looking at in terms of credit score?
It can vary a lot. I mean, I've noticed in my time in the transportation space that, especially when it comes to buying their next rig, that truckers are willing to put some cash down, which is great. So with cash down, like your acceptable credit becomes much lower. So if you have a significant down payment, 20, 30, even 40%, 500, 600, like you can get it done in that range. But if you want to put zero down or close to zero down, you're looking at a 640 plus is probably a comfortable range.
Mm.
Maybe more in like the 680 range.
Are there things that a driver needs financing on other than the equipment? Are there other like maybe your more business type expenses that they'd have to go to a finance firm for, or is that sort of separate?
Well, there is instances like we had a trucker or a trucking company reach out to us because one of their engines blew on their
Mm.
truck. They didn't necessarily want to buy another truck. They still love their truck. It just had a bum engine. So we gave them some working capital. If you've established your entity, you've got some cash flow in there. You just need some short term injection. Like we can help with that type of stuff too.
Is that for your owner operators and maybe your first time and first time buyer? I think in this case, let's extend it out a little. Like you're not now you're a first time buyer, but you've been on the road owner operating for maybe over a year or so now. This working
Yeah.
capital situation, is that a popular request? From people like that.
It is. So for the first time buyer, they're typically just focused on the truck aspect of it.
Hmm.
So we typically don't bring up working capital at that point because they don't have a basis to actually get that injection because
Yeah.
they're not an established entity yet. But as they become an owner operator and unexpected expenses come up, that's kind of where it comes into play. But on the first time buyer side, things that come up are the truck, warranty on the truck. Yeah, the warranty is a big one. I saw the
Yes.
light up there.
because that's the thing, right? The OEM warranty, by the time you're talking about that 5 year cycle, the 400,000 miles, the warranty's done at that point, right? The original OEM warranty is done.
Yeah, typically yes. I mean, there are some OEMs that extend that far, but there are warranty vendors that do warrant used vehicles. I mean, I'm not sponsored, but I know that like True North is one of them off the top of my head that they'll sponsor or they'll put a warranty on a used vehicle like that.
And I do know that trucktractortrailer.com does sell warranties if you are looking for the used truck warranty, but it's still not something that's in the front of my mind because I'm not on the road. So I'm thinking someone comes, someone reaches out to me, they're looking for a vehicle, first time buyer, or they're looking to get their second or third truck or trailer. I'm just focused on the vehicle. The warranty's back of my mind. And that's why it's just like, oh yeah, that's right. You guys need to worry about your warranty. The insurance costs too, I imagine here, because now all of a sudden you go from being under your company's insurance to now you have to go find someone to insure your new vehicle.
Absolutely. Yeah, the trucking insurance is a big aspect of it. I mean, if you're going to lease onto your carrier still, sometimes they cover the liability portion of it, but you still need to insure the property value of your truck. I mean, especially if you're going down a finance agreement with the lender. Another thing that I typically recommend, if you can find a provider, is gap insurance. Typically, people don't think about that, but if you're a single owner operator, you total your vehicle, you need that gap to make sure that if you did finance or lease that vehicle, that you're not out of pocket.
Okay. What about now, fuel savings, fuel costs? Is there anything that you're able to help with on that end?
So we personally don't do like fuel cards or any program like that. But if you do a Google search, there are plenty of companies that do like some type of conglomerate where you can get some fuel cards and get some savings to maximize that big jump that you're making into the owner operator land, that big jump in cash in the door, so that you can minimize expenses and actually make more money as the owner operator with all that additional responsibility.
When does, and we may have talked about this on a separate episode, but it's still, it's important, so I want to ask it again. Their first payment to you, when would that start?
It depends on which program we or they qualify for, or whatever fits best for kind of their cash flow. A lot of the first time buyer programs understand that they need a little gap before they make their first payment. So we have programs that go 2 months out, 3 months out before they make their first payment. But some of them, especially the zero down programs, they start within a month.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, so we talked about, we were kind of operating under, normal marketplaces for the purpose of this conversation, but I do want to talk a little bit about, because we are in an abnormal market right now. So typically what'll happen is when that person makes the shift, the cash outlay, a lot of times they kind of source the down payment from friends and family. They kind of, it becomes a family investment, so to speak. Is that still happening now? Is that becoming more of a challenge with the prices being, with there being a premium on the asset now? Are people able to come up with that initial down payment?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely extremely prevalent. We, as part of our underwriting, most of the time we analyze bank statements, and we'll see a certain level of cash in the bank, and all of a sudden there's a big uptick to illustrate their down payment.
Yeah.
Most of the time they say it's from an investment account, but we know it's generally from, gathering from like friends and family. It is tough. I mean, we're seeing, 2015s, 2016s go for 80, 90,000 right now.
Yeah.
That in and of itself is a hot market for the seller side. And just from a dollars and cents perspective, it becomes increasingly difficult. But to tip the hat to the trucking community, they seem to always find a way. So even with these increased prices, because of the freight demand, they know what's on the other side. They know what's in the green pasture once they do make that down payment, that they have their own schedule, that they're making more money. So they're willing to take that upfront. I mean, it's true entrepreneurial mindset, right?
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
willing to take that first hit in order to get to what they want to be as a business owner.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I love about the industry. I mean, that's one of the things that keeps the economy moving, is that nature of it, that entrepreneurial spirit and nature to really jump on there and get it. Last question, just because it's just something that I know has been in the media a little bit recently, and I'm curious about it. Are you seeing the age range of first-time buyers become a little bit younger?
I have seen that, actually. Now that I haven't really piloted that, but in the last few months, I've seen applicants for the first-time buyer born in 1998, 1996. Like these are younger, in their 20s, mid, even early 20s, I guess, if you calculate that, getting into the trucking space. We actually just worked with a client. He's building a big fleet. He's on his I think he's on his 15th truck. He's 22 years old.
That's incredible. Oh my gosh. That's those are the stories that we heard from people who, our age, because their grandfather started the trucking company.
Right.
And that's how he started it. It was like, oh, I got out from the military. I would, 24, started with one truck. And then, 5 years later, they had a whole fleet. And that's how a lot of these trucking companies began 50 years ago.
Right.
It's so fascinating that we're seeing like a round two of that here.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the media is touting it, like you said, and it is an attractive space. I mean, people, historically, people said, "Oh, truck driving is a certain for a certain type of individual. They're making this much money, like, but they're truck drivers," and that's the wrong connotation, right? Truck driving is the backbone of the nation. They deliver goods everywhere, and if you're an entrepreneur, it's a huge opportunity. To buy a couple assets and the return is astounding. A 60K asset nets you 150K. I mean, don't quote me on that, but that's a pretty good return in year one from my perspective.
Well, let's be honest, because what we're seeing in terms of four-year colleges is the flip side. $250,000 in debt to your first job out of college is maybe your 60K, but we all know that's probably not the case. It's probably going to be under 60K. So the thing has become completely inverted here.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to speak on that, I have a nice little fancy degree. My first job out of college, I made 45 grand. If I was a truck driver, I would have made 100. Where's the return on that?
Same. No, exactly. It took me making less money with my debt. It took me like over 10 years to pay off my student loans.
Right.
Which, to your point, is you're paying off that asset. Every time you're making a payment on that asset, you're paying it off. Like it's such I think it's probably a healthier mentality even.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely it's a good move for a lot of people.
Andrew, thanks so much for joining us today. Guys, if you are looking to make that move to start your journey, make sure to check out TrueCore Capital LLC for your finance needs. There'll be a link below. And if you like the topics we talked about here, trucks, trailers, supply chain, logistics, freight tech, all that good stuff, please be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time on stream.